Welcome everyone to the Wednesday night live show. As you can see, it's just Tim and me right now, but Phillip will be joining us here shortly. I'm not sure if Paul is going to make it, but we're gonna keep you occupied until Phil can make it, and we'll start with the questions. Tonight's show's a little bit different. I felt like maybe we could share a little bit about ourselves and what our interests are. We've talked about music and other stuff, but there's a couple other questions that I thought would be kind of fun for us to answer, and then some of the questions that we ask our guests to answer. So I don't know. Tim loves to sing, so he will sing. There will be no John, I'm not singing. Am I right, Tim?
I'll be singing in a chest voice tonight. I won't be doing. I won't. No head register stuff. Yeah, I don't want to end up having a Peter Brady moment. You know, you remember the show when he had to sing "Time to Change" and they were in the studio. It's time to change. You've got to rearrange. I know.
What is the higher registry? What is that called?
So you have your vocal fries, which are your whispers and your cracks and your real low end shit, and then you got your chest voice, which is what guys talking normally all day long are kind of that's what I'm talking like. That's called your chest voice.
Yeah.
Then you get into your head voice. Your head voice is kind of like up here on your forehead. It's kind of when you bring your vocal up to about the front of your forehead, and then you get the falsetto. You know, where you talk like a baby and you have the high pitched stuff. So there's like four.
That's the Bee Gees, right?
Four. Yeah, the Bee Gees sing a lot in falsetto.
Yeah. I could.
And R&B and some rock singers. Some rock singers don't. They sing in falsetto.
Yeah,
Tom Kiefer from Cinderella, for example.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, so we are going to just kind of chat a little bit until Paul or Phillip gets here. I'm not sure again if Paul's going to make it. But I know Phil's running a little bit late, and Allie couldn't make it tonight as well because she has band. She's a band mom.
She's with the band. She's with the band. Yeah. She's being a groupie for her kids.
I wonder if band moms are like soccer moms where they have to, have the little oranges in the pouches. Do you think Allie's the one that's bringing the little juice boxes and the orange slices to band camp?
I would be inclined to say that she's probably obligated to bring some kind of refreshment like the orange slices or brownies or, something. Although I would probably, and I think we know this based on fact, is that she does not drive like a Honda Odyssey or anything like that. So she's not driving your typical band bomb car. I think she's got some little hot rod. So
yeah. I do not picture Allison driving a Dodge Caravan, no, or a Ford Aerostar. Do they still make the Aerostar?
I think Allison likes to burn up the ozone. I think whatever she's got takes gas too. I don't think she's all electric.
So today's show, like I said, is going to be a few questions that I have for our host and myself as well. I'm going to be answering these questions as well. Some of them are from the questions that we asked our guests to answer, but then I came up with about 5 different questions. So we're going to go through those tonight. And then as well, any questions that you guys have, I did post it on Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter. That's the new way of saying it now, Tim.
I think most people probably still call it Twitter.
I know, but what I've been noticing is, like, even news article people, they write X, and then they always put formerly known as Twitter.
Well, Prince did the same thing. The artist formerly known as Prince, everybody had to pull that one. And then he get like a court injunction that you couldn't even say that anymore. Like, you literally just had to say nothing.
Well, he had the money. He had the money and the talent to do whatever he pleased. So, but then it did. He at one time it wasn't even Prince. It was something kind of odd. What was it? You remember?
Yeah, he did change it to something else. I don't
Yeah,
remember
I
what.
can't remember what it was. I remember it was something really really weird, and I
Let's
was just
Google that later in the show.
yeah. We'll Google that later, and if you know out there, let us know.
I'm
Well,
sure
this part,
somebody knows.
yeah. Well, we're going to jump into the hellos. We're going to have Tim do the hellos for everybody out
I don't
there.
get to tell you how my week's been.
Yeah, I'm going to go back. We're going to do the hellos first, and then
God,
go
why you got to
into.
mix it up on me? I'm a creature
Uh,
of
I,
habit.
I,
All right,
are
we'll
you
go
ready?
into the hellos. All
Yeah.
right, so fine, we'll play by John's rules tonight because it's his show, and we're gonna play by the rules. Hey, why am I so loud? I don't know if it's just
You're
because I
fine.
project a lot. I know, but for me, I feel like I'm
Oh,
blowing my eardrums out. Hey,
headphones.
everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wednesday Night Live Show, the Get to Know Us edition. Wrong answers only. And I promise you'll get some truth. So let's go down the roster. Let's see who showed up. We got Tom Morowitz first out of the gate. Good to see you, Mr. Morowitz. How you been? Pam Spraggins. I feel like I should be on ESPN or something. Like I should lend Berman a little bit of this. So like, and then he went back. Addie Tooney is in the house. Addie Tooney. And wait, I got a good one coming up later because I already saw you remove the punctuation from his name. For my benefit, of course. Okay. So I wouldn't probably say the punctuation name. Anyway, we'll get to him. Let's see, who else do we got? We got Steve's Vapes with no apostrophe or punctuation, and it just rolls.
It won't let you. I don't think it lets you do it,
right off the tongue. It just flows. Like I don't have to have like a pause. You know how like an ampersand, not an ampersand, but the hashtag is like a pause. I don't have to have that anymore. Now it's Steve's Vapes. It's just flows. It flows like a river. Who else we got? Hold on, I'm going. I know there's lots more down there. We got Peggy at E6 Source in the house. Good to see you, Peggy.
Hello,
welcome Peggy. Back to the show. We got James R. Obligatory Pirate. There he is. Yes, sir. Rum. Get your rum out there, James. Get hammered, buddy. Elena Taradine, good to see you. Welcome to the show. Let's see, always with the signature smiley face. She's so simple. And that's it for now. We got 12 out there. I think I named about 8 or 9 of you. So you quiet people, feel free to chime in.
Speak up.
Yeah.
Thank you. Timmy.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Tim. Now you can tell me how your week has been going, Tim.
It's actually been once again. It's been pretty much your format week for work, and there's still lots of HOA activity going on, minus the pool. The pool's kind of quiet, but now we're addressing things outside of the pool, so it's an exciting time. But I know nobody wants to hear about pine straw this week. Pine straw is just boring bullshit down here in Georgia. That's what Georgians use for mulch, folks. So if you're not familiar with pine straw, go find a pine tree, and the needles fall off, and then they die, and then they collect them. I don't know who collects them. I feel bad for that person because that's a lot of pine needles to collect. But at any rate, they put them into bales, and then they bring them out, and then like where you would normally put like bark mulch or stone work in your landscaping, they use pine straw just because it knocks out the weeds and it retains moisture. So there's your lesson for the day on pine straw.
Thank you. What's the
guy? But I guess my fun story for the week is I got.
Uh-oh.
Your boy got. I don't know. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. Jury's still out. TikTok shop got me, man. TikTok shop got me. I don't know. I should just stay off of TikTok, but I was watching. I'm scrolling, bullshit, girl dancing, bullshit, monkey, bullshit, the usual scroll. And somebody was showing off this thing called the unbrush. So if anybody's on TikTok often and watching, I'm sure you've seen the unbrush. Now, contrary to popular belief, that doesn't mean that it doesn't brush your hair. In fact, it does brush your hair, but it's supposed to be a superior detangling brush. And of course, everybody on TikTok makes it look like it works like a friggin' champ. And look at this. I mean, we got issues, folks. When it gets tangled, it gets tangled. So I got 2 of them.
Not one. You
I
went with
got two.
two.
Well, because you need one for downstairs and you need one for
Oh,
upstairs.
okay.
I don't want to
Okay.
have to chase the brush around the house. Elena, were you not listening to the pine straw story? I just told the pine straw story. I hope you were taking notes. Anyway, so I tried it, and it still yanks hair out of my head, and but it does seem to work fairly good. So anyway, I'll get back with you next week and let you know if it's actually some groundbreaking device.
Yeah, TikTok has turned into infomercial after infomercial after infomercial. It seems like back a few months ago, I was able to kind of go through like 7, 8 videos before, bam, I was hit with somebody trying to sell something. But now it's just like, boom, the rotating camera thing, the air conditioning unit, what else is
You're talking
TikTok's
about
got?
TikTok Shop? What are you
TikTok,
talking about?
TikTok, the app.
Yes. What about it?
I said it's turned into an infomercial. It's just a selling platform now. It's just
Well,
like,
that's the thing is the
yeah,
majority of the stuff that I see come through are primarily lives
yeah,
and stuff people are trying to peddle on the TikTok Shop.
yeah. Well, as I was saying, it used to be I would have to go through about 8, 10 videos, some fun videos before I saw somebody trying to sell something. But here lately, it's just like one after the other, and it's just like product watches. The new thing that like 8 people I saw. I'm not shitting you. No, it wasn't 8. It was 6 back to back to back videos of that new device that the iPhone or your phone sits on, and it'll
Hmm.
track you.
Yes.
You seen that thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I just shut the app off. What did I do this week? I'm going to share you what I've been doing. And yesterday was the last day. Some of you people have seen what I've been up to this last week on my TikTok, or not TikTok, on Twitter, and I want to share a little bit of it
Okay.
because this is what I was doing. This is what I was
Oh, yeah.
doing.
Here we go.
We have a tradition. We've been doing this for 43 years here in California. And we pick tomatoes to make tomato sauce. It's between like 3 or 4 families. I think we've done 350 jars this week. But you can see it's like,
Come here.
but it's just family out picking, and we'll fill it. I don't know if there's a shot.
Where's the video of you picking?
I'm picking. I
I
was
don't know. It
picking.
looks like you're supervising, holding the camera there.
Well, that's the thing. As you get older, you don't have to pick
The
as much.
dude in front of you is like 105 and he's picking tomatoes, and you're walking around telling people to go pick a tomato.
Yeah, it's my daughter. Yes, it's 5 generations, and we'll fill the whole back of that pickup truck. There's my grandson. But we'll fill that whole back of that pickup truck with tomatoes. We take it back to the house, and then yesterday I will show you that. Yesterday, let me go to that part of it. This was me yesterday. All right, hold
I did see
on.
this video as well.
Yeah, yeah. This is the hard part. The picking part is pretty simple. It's pretty easy. It's pretty.
Question
Yeah,
before you move on
yeah,
to the next
yeah,
phase of
yeah,
your tomato journey.
yeah, yeah.
Is that your farm, or did you pay
That's a
somebody,
friend,
slip
of
them
the
a
family.
Benny? Yeah.
No, it's a friend of the family. We pick on 2 farms for the last 40 something years. They're friends of the family, and we get to pick there.
Nice.
But let me shut the volume off. Is it the audio? You can see there's our machine. We dump the tomatoes in there. They get smashed, and the puree, is that what you want to call it? Comes
Puree.
out
That's
the pulp.
correct. Puree. The
Yeah,
puree.
comes out into that big tub there, and then it gets cooked and boiled, and then it gets jarred. And there I
For
am.
the
There you
record,
go.
I want
See, you'd
everyone to
see me
know.
working.
Huh? Oh, yeah.
You
Well,
see?
finally, he's doing something, screwing the tops on the jars. Way to pick up the slack there, Truncali. No, for the record, I want everyone to know that when I first saw him post that video, this particular video, I thought John had a slaughterhouse in his backyard because I thought it was ground beef, but I was wrong.
You can use that for hamburger. You can use that. Have an attachment that switches it to to grind up meat for hamburger. That machine that you saw actually was purchased in Italy. We had to buy that thing in Italy and bring it to the United States to use it because couldn't find that machine in 220. I think it's 220. What's it? 220, right? 220
Yes.
is the yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't find that machine in the US in 220 and it just runs better. We have that same machine and it doesn't work as it runs. It's a different motor and it's a 110 and it just doesn't work as
Well, oh, wait,
sufficient.
I thought we were 110 and overseas was 220.
Right. We wanted a 220 machine with the bigger motor. It has a
Okay.
bigger motor, a different circuit, so it runs a little faster and better. So to buy that machine, you have to go to Italy or Canada. Now we know you can purchase that machine in Canada and then transport it here to the U.S. Well, that's what I was doing. So I did personally myself. I stuck to my age, Tim. I stuck to the year I was born. I did 68 jars.
Yeah, well,
68.
that's amazing. Good to see you. Good to see you go above and beyond the Call of Duty on that one.
So that was my week. It was fun. It's something that we do every year. Like I said, I've been doing it since I've been a little kid and since we moved here in 1980. And it's a tradition I want to pass on to my kids. I've been doing it for as long as they were been born, and now I get to teach my grandkids that were my two granddaughters that were out there, and my grandson and my two grandsons. So it was fun. It was fun watching him. It's funny that the boys were the ones that were doing the most complaining about picking. The girls just tore it up. They just went out there and they just pick.
Yeah, because they were dreaming about their game controllers back home.
Yeah, that's what it is. Well, they had their Nintendo Switch out there with them. So I was
Oh
like, no,
God,
no, put that away. Put that away.
it was break time.
Uh,
To Steve's question, did the
yeah.
China hackers get my credit card number? No, they didn't. They didn't get my credit card because I funneled it through PayPal vis-a-vis the credit card. So I did pay with a credit card, but I didn't immediately give them a credit card number. But if I do get skimmed, I'll let you know.
It's known as Prince, uh, aka the artist. Did he change?
Right.
I think was it the artist?
Well, his original name's Prince Rogers Nelson. Then he was the
Yeah.
artist formerly known as Prince, and then AKA the artist. But I think he was just Symbol for a while. I think
Oh, that's right. That
he
symbol.
was just Symbol because you literally could not say any of the aforementioned names. He went
Right.
basically just by Symbol.
Right. Right. Well, we have waited for Mr. Phillip for 17 minutes. So I am going to go ahead and start the first question for Tim and myself, and then we will work Phillip back into the mix here.
We'll loop back around.
Yeah, we'll loop back around to Phil. We'll make sure he doesn't miss out on these. Let's start from the top. And this is pretty interesting because I know your love for music and your love for certain bands. So I think it would be interesting to get your take on this. But what were the bands or artists that had the biggest impact on you and why, Tim?
Well, that's an extremely loaded question right there. So I think you have to you did not determine a distinction, like at what point. But does that really matter? No, because there's lots of artists that have influenced me over the years, whether it be just based on musical progression in my life, like going
Yeah.
from one style to another. I mean, obviously, when I was much younger, I wasn't listening to heavy metal and hard rock and stuff as much as I was until my teen years, and I grew up a little bit and I realized I had a pair of ears and there was other shit out there that I could listen to, and maybe I had a different group of friends. But can I say several? I can say several. It says what were the bands or artists. So I'll start with the ones that probably to most people would seem the most obvious. So certainly the first 3 albums I ever purchased in my life, the very first album I ever purchased was Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance.
Wow.
That was without question probably one of the more influential bands of my youth. Now that was blended in with, stuff like Van Halen and AC/DC, but they were kind of like mainstream kind of thing. Priest wasn't really, they were a little bit more of a fringe, heavier type band. So Judas Priest for sure. And it also helped with my first girlfriend ever, because she was the biggest Judas Priest fan on the planet. I don't think she is anymore. She's all grown up and super smart, so I'm sure she's left that in the past. But then Ozzy Osbourne was definitely one of them. You have to keep in mind I was born in '68. That makes me 55 now.
Yep.
So I was pretty much right in that transitional period where Zeppelin and the Stones and the Who and AC/DC. Well, AC/DC is a little bit different animal, but that stuff was kind of becoming classic rock, and then the harder rock was coming into play. So Sabbath was probably still a little kind of like quantified as more classic rock, because Ozzy had moved on. And then ultimately, in terms of metal bands from that era, was Queensryche. Queensryche for me was probably the one band that just kind of pushed me way over the edge, because I had never experienced anything like that style. They definitely were trendsetters from a progressive standpoint. And then the guilty pleasure. So I've no shame in my game. You can cancel me if you want to. I don't give a shit.
Hit us. Hold on, Tim. Hold on,
you want
Tim.
to take a guess?
Let me build it up.
Okay. There's a drum roll going on. Hall & Oates. Of all the bands, yeah, they were my guilty pleasure band. I remember getting the H2O album, vis-a-vis Columbia House Records, when you had to pick 13 records for 1 penny, and then basically sign your life away to a collector coming after you for not returning the tape every month that you were supposed to send back. So Hall & Oates, and ironically, I never did see them as a kid. They were always a favorite. I mean, they're from the 70s. I mean, they go way back.
They go way
so
back.
I mean, they weren't any young band by the time I got into them. I think I picked up right around the Man-Eater and Kiss on my list, and those kinds of songs were like the ones that were sort of in my wheelhouse. Sarah Smile I learned to love after a while, because I'd never really heard their earlier stuff. But I did get to see them finally. I can't remember what year now. It was in, I want to say, early 2000s. I did get to go see Hall & Oates in Atlantic City. They played. And
wow,
dare I say, while it was a great show, I finally got to see one of my bucket list bands in my life. It was weird, because I kind of expected it to be sort of the MTV experience, and everything would sort of be at the same tempo, but it was very Vegas-y. You know what I mean? Like, they kind of slowed the songs down. It was a lot more production going on. And of course, everybody standing around me was probably about 10 to 15 years older than me. So I felt like you're hanging out with your parents the whole night. So, but yeah, that's it.
Nothing wrong with hanging out with your parents at a concert. Just
out of the way. My parents, but I was like, look at all them old fogies over there, and I'm,
old people, parents, same thing.
Yeah, I could not picture myself going to an '80s concert with one of my parents. There's just no way that was ever going to happen.
Give it some time. I'll tell you all about it.
No, I know it's cool, because that whole thing changed with my kids. Like, I wanted to take my kids to shows and see some of the stuff I grew up in the '80s when they started touring. And then my ex-wife at the time, she took my daughter to concerts. Like, that was weird to me, because I could never picture my parents taking me to a show, like to a concert, or, which would have been their music, which would have been, like Frank, Dean, and, that older generation. But let me ask you something, though, Tim, with Hall & Oates. It was something about Hall & Oates, and I don't know what it was, because I was the same as you. I was really into rock and metal. But for some reason, that Hall & Oates, I just kind of got into it. Do you think it had a little bit to do, though, with the music that we grew up with our parents, that same type of rhythm? And
certainly, because if you really listen to Hall & Oates, I mean, they kind of span the gamut, so I mean, they obviously are very heavily R&B influenced. I mean, that's really sort of like they're a soulful kind of band, so R&B is a big core of their music style. And then of course you get the rock elements of it, and then and consequently you get blues and other stuff that they blend in with it. But yes, I certainly think that the attraction there was because you grow up listening to that from your dad. We had stuff like Johnny Mathis and Neil Sedaka and and Tony Orlando and Dawn,
Chaya Yellow.
I mean,
Gordon Lightfoot.
Billy Nelson, and I mean, just there was
Yeah.
and Elvis, and there was so much going on in the house in terms of music. That I think that you just part of that just gets kind of connected to you, and so when a band like that strikes a chord, you're like, it's definitely your earlier influence.
So your parents listened to a lot of music. You all listened to a lot of music in your house growing up.
Yeah.
My dad, my dad. Here's a quantification of my dad. My dad would work all day. He would come home. The first thing he'd do when he got in the doors, and it always ended in two, but he would get his vodka tonic, or he'd get his gin and tonic, or something like that. And then he would start sipping on that, and then when it would set in, all good gravy, like the sentimental, vibes just started flowing through him. So he'd be sitting there pulling out albums and playing different stuff. Harry Chapin. I mean, it just was all over the place. And
is he a musician ever?
No, not at all. No, there was no musical inclination in my family whatsoever. I drove my mom nuts with the recorder in 4th grade. They would not buy me a drum set or a guitar.
It's a rite of passage.
That's why I ended up singing more or less. But like then you'd have the uncomfortable nights, Then there was like the weird night where he like a little too sauced on the gin and tonic, and he's sitting there on his Elvis nights, and he'd be like, Timmy, you got to come in here and listen to this song. It's a great song.
With those massive, like what were those singles that like it were this thick?
Well, his was Caught in a Trap. His was Caught in a Trap. And he would force me to sit on this floral printed couch and listen to Caught in a Trap like 2-3 times. But I'll tell you a nice sentimental story about all of that is that he loved music so much that he actually had 2 songs picked out, one for me and one for my brother. And and so the song that was for me was Rhinestone Cowboy by Glenn Campbell. I don't know why. I guess because I kind of knew the song really well, and it was, and I always would sing along to it as a kid. So for him growing up, and when I was growing up, Rhinestone Cowboy by Glenn Campbell was on. You'll never guess what my brother's song was.
Bitch by the Stones. No, just kidding.
Definitely. That was it. No, it wasn't it. His was the theme
that
song.
Was mine.
His was the theme song to The Greatest American Hero.
Oh my goodness.
Believe it or not, I'm
walking on air. I never thought I'd
feel so free. Yep, there you go.
Damn. Okay, we gotta cut that.
That is a great song, though, man. Dude, think about in the 80s how much that song was used in commercials. That was like one of the big commercial songs. They used it in so many things.
You guys are a little older than I am, I think. I'm going to be 49 October
We're 55.
3rd.
We're both 55.
Same thing, 49, 55.
Yeah,
so I literally, one of my first real vivid memories is sitting in front of the television waiting and, just looking at the clock. When is it going to start for that show?
Yeah.
I thought it was just spectacular.
It wasn't me. It was for me. It was my house for music was completely crazy because my dad loved American music and Italian music, but my mom strictly played Italian music, and a lot of the singers that came to be in Philadelphia. So there was a lot of that Philadelphia sound that was coming. My mom loved that Philadelphia sound. So she kind of listened. I can't remember the names of the bands. I wish I could remember some of those names, but it would be, oh God, what was the name of the show? Tim knows. Tiny Bubbles. Oh, come on. What was the name?
Lawrence Welk.
Lawrence Welk. We would have Lawrence Welk, and then would be fucking the country show would be on, and then Yeehaw, and then every now and then American Bandstand, because American Bandstand was just down the street from our house. It wasn't far, and that was kind of like my dream. Growing up, I was like, I'm going to be on American Bandstand someday. My mom was like, yeah, whatever. You go away. You're never getting on American Bandstand. But yeah, I grew up with that Frank Sinatra. I grew up with a lot of Italian music. My dad was a big Dolly Parton fan. So anything that Dolly Parton put out, my dad had the album. He had the 8-track, whatever that was out there, he had it. So I grew up with all this different type of music, man. And then same thing, as I became a teenager and I started listening to other music, I was just like AC/DC for me, that was an awakening for me because it was just like that stuff was stuff that I thought I felt bad listening to because of my upbringing, being a Catholic and being an altar boy, and then hearing these
Really?
lyrics. Yeah, I was just like, my parents were like, "Nope, let me see that." We would play it. But it was the funny thing, it's still the funniest story, but, my mom, we all 3 of us had amazing stereos in our rooms, all 3 of us boys, and I put in this tape, and the song was AC/DC, "I've Got Big Balls," and to hear my mom screaming through the living room, what the hell
Were
is
you like
that?
me and
Oh,
felt like you were
no.
listening to like a code song or something like that? Like your parent?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, because he's singing about balls, but he's singing about balls.
But he's
Balls.
So
singing about
Yeah.
some balls are held for charity and some for fancy dress. But the ones that are held for pleasure are the ones that I like best. I got big balls.
Oh,
But it's
machine.
done with a Cockney. I would okay. Lyrically speaking, AC/DC, they might have been a little risque, but let's just say they were. I can't recall a single satanic verse for any of them.
No, it was just the content, the album cover that just kind of threw my parents off a little bit. Again, I was an altar boy, grew up a good Catholic boy, and that wasn't the music we were supposed to be listening to. And I couldn't even tell you who would have been the '80s version of boy bands today, Tim.
the '80s version of boy bands today. Well, I can
Don't
tell you one. I can tell
Yeah.
you one right off the top
Yeah, be
is
careful.
Menudo. Menudo
Menudo.
was like the thing, like in the '80s when I was young. That's when I don't know. I think Ricky Martin came around later, but
Yeah.
Menudo was kind of like a phenomena. And I remember, I think they had them on the show Wonderama. Does anybody remember the show Wonderama with Bob McNamara? I know I'm
Thank
probably
God, no.
talking out of my ass at this point.
No, I remember Menudo. It was a terrible, dark time in my life.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
But yeah,
They had
it was like that. That Menudo was definitely one
But
of
there
them.
were some other, I can't remember. What was the name of they may have been or later '70s, but what was the name of the family that tore in the bus?
what, the
The
Partridge
Partridge
Family?
Family.
Yeah, Partridge Family. There you go. Yeah.
Jonesy?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
might
we
as
had the
well have
Partridge
been
Family.
Well,
that
the
would have
truth is, all these, even Ginger Baker, the drummer for Cream, he was on shows like that in the '60s. I mean, literally,
yeah.
they had all these shows, and trust me when I tell you, Ginger Baker could play. Menudo, I cannot confirm nor deny that they didn't play any
They
instrument.
didn't play anything.
No, they didn't
They
play
they
anything.
just sang. They just
Yeah.
were
And there was
record
something funny about
industry
that thing
creation.
too, right?
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
were.
you got kicked out or something. I remember some
When their voice
controversy.
would break, when
That's right.
when their voice would finally break into puberty, they would boot them
I
out of the band.
think at least they were upfront and honest about it, as
Yeah.
opposed to a few other acts that, let's just say, by today's standards, probably wouldn't have a Grammy taken away over lip syncing. Let's just say that that's become something of a. We won't get into that tonight, but yeah, Menudo was. God, that was awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, there, Philip? What were the bands or artists that had the biggest impact on you, and why?
Okay, how much time do I have? Okay,
It's a
my
2-hour
father.
show.
Okay, my upbringing was very musical. I was made to take piano lessons from day one, first grade, and that was more or less a result of my father and my mother both being musicians. But my father was a guitar player in a band during med school that was. They wrote a song that was very famous. It still is, but they sold the rights to Wilson Pickett because they were like, "We're in med school." It was back. If you could think of that movie, That Thing You Do, it's a very good example of how bands toured back then. You had a hit single and you toured around playing that
Yep.
same song.
Yep.
And he and his bandmates, they were all in med school at Columbia. They were like, "Nah, yeah, we'll take the money. Thanks very much."
Yeah.
But he was very adamant about everything from the Stones to Gilbert and Sullivan, which I know way too many lyrics to, the Mikado and HMS Pinafore. Not a bad thing. I apologize for nothing. But I would say that the first music that I was ever told was sacred would be the album Let It Bleed. And before that, we had various things like Peter, Paul, and Mary and Puff the Magic Dragon. And, every Christmas we never listened to, my father is Jewish. My mother converted to Judaism before they married because my grandmother said, "You are converting." And she did.
You.
End of story. And every Christmas, we never had any Christmas music. It was not really Christmas, but
I don't think so.
well, what we had was Luciano Pavarotti doing the entirety of the album, "Oh Holy Night," 24 hours a day between Hanukkah and Christmas, because my father willed it so. And that is the greatest Ave Maria ever, as far as I'm concerned. But somewhere in there, I became aware of bands like Duran Duran, which I don't care if anyone remembers.
Yeah, I do.
Friday night video fights on MTV.
Yeah.
When the Reflex knocked Photograph by Def Leppard off the top of the chart.
Oh my God.
I was so conflicted. I didn't know what to do.
That was about as hard to swallow as Jethro Tull getting the Grammy for Best Heavy Metal Act.
See, you were
Metallica.
The metal came to me slowly but surely. Like, I loved a lot of, like, my first record, as far as I can remember, the first one I was given, I think, after, sing song, kid stuff, was, I think, Duran Duran's original Duran Duran self-entitled. It starts with Girls on Film, which is, let's say, that wasn't exactly clean. It was a great album, and it also made me aware of things like, their bass player. My God, everybody in the world thought he was like, he was a heartthrob of whatever, but he played a mean bass line. If you listen to
his player was a heartthrob, that actually exists. Who would that be?
I think his name was Roger Taylor.
Oh, the guy from Duran Duran. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, you're right. He was.
Sweetheart, you remember?
Yeah.
Anyhow, that led to a great many loves, which include, I fell into a very, very passionate, dedicated metal must find something harder stage of my life, where it was extraordinary because to talk about, going to concerts with your parents. I saw Prince on the Purple Rain tour twice with my parents.
Wow.
One time the guitar that sprays water all over you didn't work, which was great because Prince played it off like, oh no, I couldn't possibly. And then, of course, thank God, I saw Motley Crue with none other than Guns N' Roses opening up for them when I was in 7th grade. Friends, let me tell you something. I've never heard as much in the way of profanity, and I've never seen anything like that. They could not play. They were talking about all the drugs they had been doing. They said, "This city sucks. We can't stand it. We can't do anything but drugs." And the audience booed them off the stage. It was kind of frightening on some level. And of course, I was with my best friend from elementary school, Mary Hinkle, and his mom, who was in a stall in some bathroom in the back of the auditorium. Of course, the next day, I'm the only kid who found a way to procure that album, Appetite for Destruction. But I mean, this is a long time ago. This is what, 87?
87. Yeah, 87.
Yeah, 87. Tommy Lee flipping around in drums and stuff. But my God, they were just like so shockingly, they were so raw that I was like, I must know more. So I bought that album. So I was never, after that, I mean, I loved Motley Crue. I loved stuff like I enjoyed Hall & Oates. My mother was, the big sort of 80s, oh gosh, the Romantics, she would play that and dance. My father would be like, oh, hell with that. And he would find something like, he would throw on Bitch or Give Me Shelter or something like that. But, I had and I'm grateful, I had a fairly diverse, my influences were diverse. And sooner or later, I realized this glam metal is just really getting unbearable. And that's when I discovered Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
And I think that Queensryche owes Iron Maiden at least, part of whatever they've put away on. Let's just say the album Operation Mindcrime, those dueling guitars, everything about that. They were so good. But I also think Dave Murray and Adrian Smith from Iron Maiden, Live After Death, that album, that changed everything for me. So after that, it was sort of looking for something harder, more complicated, complex, which enter the Rush stage. And that's, and bear in mind, I've been taking piano lessons this whole time. When you take years, almost a decade worth of piano lessons, you might not be able to play piano worth a damn,
Yeah.
but you can pick up a guitar and play it pretty well.
Yeah.
To be a great pianist takes a lifetime. To play guitar well doesn't take much, comparatively speaking.
Yeah.
So in high school, in junior high school, I can remember being told, "No, you can't come to my son's house," because I'm like, why? Oh, is it the Number of the Beast shirt that I'm wearing with Eddie, with a decapitated head in his right hand? What's wrong with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
And at the same time, I really just was so oblivious to, I mean, I was never trying to throw these things in anyone's face. And it was, I knew enough about, the music and the people who were writing the music to know that it was all,
It's an act.
it was a theater. Yeah.
Yeah.
The most impressive kind of theater.
Yeah.
And none of them, everyone in the band, they were actually very intelligent people. And for the most part, they were musically, technically proficient.
Yeah, see, you say that. It's funny that you say that because, like, us 80s kids grew up knowing that that was an act and that was kind of, just a show, Kiss, for a perfect example. I didn't picture any of those guys walking around, Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, just every day with that shit on. I knew that whole, yeah.
I mean, nothing that they wrote. I mean, if you're gonna blame it on the makeup, I mean, what a soft move to go and talk about Kiss in terms of they're damning our children to hell. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on.
It's funny. It's funny that now we've grown up, and a majority of those parents that grew up in the 80s are those parents that are saying, "Oh my God, Marilyn Manson, this is horrible. This is disgusting. Our kids shouldn't be listening." It's just
because
weird
he
how we
blows
made
his
that
nose on
transition.
people now. So.
Yeah.
Well, Marilyn Manson was given sort of like this license, and I actually think Marilyn Manson deserves a lot more credit for his talent. Everything else about him, But let's just say that when you label someone, when you decide to label someone because they look a certain way or their music sounds a certain way, and you don't take a deeper, a more critical take on it, and you just go ahead and say, "Oh, it's evil. It should be banned." Well, I can't really blame any of those acts for lashing out and becoming even more shock oriented.
Yeah.
Like think of Wasp, for example, Blackie Lawless. They were truly the most maligned of the PMRC bands, I think, and probably for good reason. But as soon as they were, made Public Enemy #1, at least in California, well, hell, they were going to play harder, faster, and make up, all the time. And that's. I'm sorry, I'm not going to blame them for,
No, I think a lot of it, I think 80s prior to MTV changed the way bands started selling themselves. And I think getting that opportunity to be on a television screen for millions of people to watch and see, I think they figured it out. We need to put on a fucking show. It needs to be, sadly, it had to be more than just about the music. It had to be this, this video had to be everything, and if you think about it, I hate saying it, but God damn it, why can't I remember? Michael Jackson kind of set the bar pretty high when it came to fucking music videos.
My father got pissed about MTV once, and it was scary. He walked in, I guess, at that point in the video for When Doves Cry, Bubble Bath point, and I thought he was going to kick right through the big old console TV. And this is not hit on brand for him. This is very strange. I was really taken aback. Anyway, he just happened to have a shit day, and he was pissed that about something else entirely. But if you think about it, back then, how much in the way of attention was paid to bands that were, quote, satanistic, or they were selling, they were, and in the meantime, Heaven's Gate, how you doing?
Yeah,
I mean, how many different death cults do we have out there? I mean, evil is very infrequently. They don't really go out onto the streets and say, "Oh, black, we're evil." No, they're dressed up in Izods and khakis. Trust me.
Yeah,
It's
we're gonna
just it's a
jump
silly
into the
thing.
next topic,
Yeah.
but it's funny you brought that up because for my dad, it was Culture Club. Boy George, when he walked into the living room, he saw, "What the fuck is that?" And I've never heard my dad say that. He was just like, "What the fuck is that?" and just kept walking. I was like,
If it were not for my mom, my dad probably doesn't say. My mom was like, "Oh, I like him." He's like, "Oh shit."
yeah, my dad was like, "What the hell was that?" I was like,
But I have to say, REM, Kuda Gurus,
REM?
Guadalcanal Diary, the Smithereens, Replacements, all very important.
Oh, great music. All right, question number 2. This is all about getting to know us a little bit, guys. So I'm kind of curious with these guys here. Food. If you were going to open up a restaurant, what type of food would you be serving, Tim?
Oh, Lord have mercy. I don't know. You know what? I think I could just wipe it out in one fell swoop and just basically pull a cheesecake factory.
Ooh, just desserts.
No.
Tim, you're a creative soul. Do better.
No. If it were me, I think I would probably go mostly Americana, just because that's sort of my wheelhouse. And I think if I had to do it, I would probably combine it with a bit of pit barbecue stuff going on, but not like strictly like a smokehouse barbecue kind of joint, where you kind of get the metal tray with the paper on it. I mean, burgers, fries, but good ones, not
Something
like
that speaks
shitty.
to sanitation. That
All
Yeah,
right,
but
you
like
ready? This is the bonus question, though, Tim.
Oh,
What
shit.
would be the name of your place? I didn't tell you I was going to hit you with that one. So
It would be called Meet Me. MEATME. Meet Me.
Oh, that's so good.
Meet Me.
It's so
Trademark
good
that
or it's
quick.
terrible. I can't tell. I'm going with
Now
so good.
I know somebody out there just took my idea and ran with it. So I'll be looking for you on Uber Eats.
How about you, Philip? What is Philip's restaurant going to be, and what is it going to be called?
Well, there's only one answer to this question. Seeing as I'm now in Alabama, and I'm very grateful for the area in which I grew up around here. I'm also grateful that I got the hell out of here for a while. But let's just say we lack for a certain amount of kosher deli.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, whether it be Jerry's in LA or whatever, Katz's in New York or whatever.
Oh,
Our
God. So you
closest
had to
thing
say
is
that.
gonna be shit. I mean, it's terrible. It's
No,
god awful.
my mouth is watering when you said cat in New York, because now in my mind I'm thinking I want a pastrami sandwich and I
No,
can't get a
I
good
don't need
pastrami
rabbis looking like they're about to perform a brisk or anything. I just need a decent corned beef sandwich. I found one in Ormond Beach, which was where we went last weekend, which is 45 minutes away from Daytona. We didn't spend much time in Daytona. In case you didn't know, it's just a great big bloody super speedway and everything around it. It's kind of dilapidated. Anyway, the point is, we had a place here that had matzo ball soup, and I got to be honest with you, it was an affront to my people. It was like Lipton's with like like something like a bread ball in it. I don't know. My bubby, shit, it's gonna be all right. But I grew up with the Wonder Bread and you can't possibly eat that. The rye and mustard and the white bread with lettuce, tomato, mayo, and cucumber. So we got plenty of that.
Yeah.
What would I call it? I don't know.
I know it wouldn't be called Phil's. I had to throw that in there.
I'd call it. No. I mean, the stage is already taken.
Call it. Just call it that.
I call it Max's. Christ, I don't know.
Yeah.
It sounds close enough.
Yeah. Well, everybody that knows me knows it's
divine
pizza.
inspiration, Aphrodite. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. But yeah, that, and then of course, what Tim said, an elevated Cracker Barrel.
Yeah. Everyone that knows me knows it's pizza. If I was ever going to open up a place, it would be pizza. And yes, there would be no pineapple option available in my pizzeria. So.
I think our good our charitable viewers need to know something. There is a distinct difference between a person who is Italian and a person who is you. It's just very Sicilian.
Yeah,
in
I'm
my
very
opinion.
Sicilian. Yes,
because Italian can mean okay. You're not. For example, one of my friend's husbands is from Italian. You are nothing like him. Let's just say he's got a bit of a machismo streak. You don't really have that.
Yeah.
I mean, his is more. Let's just say he's, I don't know, somewhere up near Rome. See, yours is very family oriented. It's the exact opposite of his. His is very motorcycle and loud music, and yeah, he disappears all the time. But I think that those posts that you made of your family harvesting tomatoes for tomato sauce.
Yeah. That's the tradition. I need to keep going. Like I said, I want to keep passing that on I pass it on to my kids, and just having my grandkids out there doing it. It was amazing. So it was fun.
My people can't barrel sauerkraut for Rubens. It's just, it can't be done.
We have actually my uncle's friend. He's Jewish, and he's actually right now across the street, and he does about 125 jars for himself every year. So he comes and picks with us, and we do our sauce, and he comes the day after and then does his, because it's the recipe's a little bit different the way he likes it. So it's a little bit, I don't know.
Foodies and Epicureans are foodies and Epicureans. Jewish, Catholic, Baptist, maybe Methodist, probably no Scientology. But anyway.
All right, hobbies, and we'll go ahead and start with you, Phillip.
Hold on. What's the name of your restaurant going to be?
Oh, well, it's got to be Giovanni's. That's just the name. It's just going to be Giovanni's. My name, John. So simple.
Okay. Simple. I'm sorry. We had to come up with ours. You got to come up with yours.
It would either be that or Grazia, which is my mom's name. Even when I was younger, I wanted to be a cook, a chef. My older brother's a chef, and our kind of thing was we would, if we were ever to open up a restaurant, it would be called after my mom. It would be called Grazia's, so Grace. So it would be one of those. It'd be either Giovanni's or Grazia's. Grazia's Pizzeria, Giovanni's Pizzeria.
Actually, I changed mine. Mine would be Joe's.
There.
Short for Joseph.
Yeah. What is Philip's hobbies? Phillip's hobbies,
wide range of hobbies. I still play guitar, still play out occasionally. Trying to maybe get back into that a little bit, because when you play for a long time and you stop playing, it's something that you miss a lot, and getting back into it is can be very painful, because you have to listen to yourself suck. And you don't want anybody else to have to listen to that. It's not that I'm embarrassed. It's a matter of courtesy. So I had to go out and get a even smaller practice amp. And I'm getting there. I'm not about to, but I've got that. I mean, back, way back when I was, working and recording, we actually recorded. We were the best British band from Birmingham, quote unquote. And we moved to Denver, where I also had a job. It just happened to be waiting for me. And I knew it was never going to last, because our drummer, who was phenomenal, literally met our bass player, who I had to teach to play bass, Lindsay, online. And they moved in together immediately. And I said, this is how bands crash and burn, so I best enjoy it. But yeah, we recorded all kinds of stuff. I had a set of V drums and
nice.
Yeah, it was great. It was wonderful. I wish it would have been nice if we made money off the record, but that was never something we got to open up for some pretty cool bands.
Yeah. I mean, you were kind of following your father's footsteps somewhat in learning instrument and playing in a band. And I for some reason, I picture you, the teenager, at the campfire with all the girls around you with your guitar, serenading them. Am I right or am I wrong?
You are absolutely correct, sir.
I knew it. You were the guy I hated. I was like, God damn it, I gotta learn how to play
I wasn't
guitar.
serenading. It was my best friend Michael
You were
who did the
singing, though.
singing. I was the one who
Oh.
playing, and I sang a Mike Mills-esque sort of high backup, which was outstanding. But no, the girls were watching him.
Yeah,
I just
hated those
provided
guys.
all the talent.
I always wanted to learn. My older brother learned played guitar, and watching him get his lessons at the house for an hour, 3 times a week, he looked so frustrated, and it was just like I think that I shouldn't have watched it because I could see the frustration, like you were talking about when you're first trying to learn, and to me it felt like I don't want to go through that, and when I wish I would have just did it like he did and learned to play.
It isn't easy to just pick up an instrument and play it.
Yeah.
You have to have a foundation. In my opinion, strong opinion, is that if you make any kid sit down and learn the basics of piano, I think that translates very well to the basics of all, string instruments. Forget about horn, forget about anything like that. But you'll learn the recorder eventually, and your parents will know damn well you're learning about the recorder too. But
Yeah.
Piano after that, it wasn't hard.
Yeah.
Plus my old man had his, 56 Les Paul sitting around, which will remain in my family forever. I care not what it's worth, but we used it every day. Hell, we used it as a weapon on occasion. That was scary. But yeah, it's difficult. My old brother played drums, and that is something that I never did because I figured keys, bass, guitar, that's enough. I'm not going to go through the whole drummer thing because that's rude.
Yeah. What were Tim's hobbies? Tim, what's your hobbies? I know one of them because we all get to see it on Facebook now. You picked up a new one.
No, I'm not a one of the sneakerheads, if that's what you're implying.
No, the little models.
Oh, well, all right. So, I mean, it depends on what hobby you want to talk about. I'm a very an addictive personality, so I have a real problem with getting latched onto a hobby and then kind of like running with that, like seriously for a considerable amount of time. So, I mean, the model thing, for context, yes, I enjoy models. Keep in mind, my dad owned a hobby store for 15 years when I was growing up. So
Awesome.
basically, that was, the family business. And so, there were a lot of days and evenings spent sitting in this hobby store as a young boy with nothing to do. Like I'm not ringing the register. I'm not helping customers. Dad's got to keep an eye on me. So we're hanging out there. So, I grew up being raised on stuff like that, like art, education, stuff like that. My dad was not like some testosterone filled musclehead, where like he took you out in the backyard and shoved a football in your gut and knocked you down and was like, "Get up, boy, do it again." It was never.
Who the hell's father did that?
Lots of the dads were like, sports driven, red blooded kind of,
In Atlanta? Did you
dudes
grow
like
up
that.
in Atlanta?
Well,
Did you
but
get
anyway,
the
I never got that personal exposure. So I was more aligned with hobbies and art and stuff like that. So models were a big part growing up, doing dioramas because my dad had all the stuff to do like train sets and everything. So you had all the little micro mini things, like little mini
Nice.
trees and lichen and the stuff to make fake grass and the stuff to form mountains and all that stuff, so did a lot of that. So I don't know if that was an addiction per se, because I don't have like shelves and shelves of like old Revell plastic models that I glued together and painted.
What is Revell?
Revell is the name of a company that makes scale plastic models, either snap together or glue together. So you see the real model. Look, Revelle. Maybe there's two L's. Revelle. But they've been a name in the business for a lot of years. But anyway, was never really one of my core hobbies. I think over the years, music was certainly one of them for a long period of time. I mean, I started out singing in bands and stuff like that, and then when my voice was kind of gone, then I got into drums, and I like Philip. I had 2 drum sets. I still have them. I have an acoustic I have an Export Select kit, Pearl Export Select kit, sitting in a box out there in the garage that was like an 8-piece. I had a Roland V drum kit, or I still have the Roland V drum kit. One of the earlier models. I like the newer ones with the new style cans and stuff like that.
Anything by Roland is decent. Go ahead.
And then on top of that, I got latched into RC cars and stuff like that. So I got into remote control stuff really heavy. So I've got like 10 cars spanning electric versus gas powered, stuff like that. So I did that for a long period of time. Computers was a big hobby of mine for quite some time. So, I mean, to the point where I was building them and pirating a lot of software. At one point, but I think we all did that, at one point. Now it's a little bit harder to do nowadays. But
Microsoft Office, I'm not paying for that.
Well, exactly. So I mean, it was things like that. But I mean, I wanted to maybe pick a career path in PCs and computers, networking, or something to that effect. So that was a big one. And then I'm trying to think, was there anything else that I just got really friggin' droned in on? Oh, well, gaming became really popular. I wasted 7 years of my life playing World of Warcraft from literally the moment I got home from work till some ungodly hour in the middle of the night, get up and go to work. We used to stand in line out front of the Best Buy to get the new release when the new expansion would come out. This is before you could digitally download them and install them. You had to go get the CD, and we would stand out there at midnight on the night before release night and get our copy of World of Warcraft. But I came to the conclusion that it's a pretty sad state of affairs when the character in the game is far more accomplished in his life than you are in your own. So I basically had to kind of dial that one back, because you eventually have to pick your head up and realize what's going on around you. And I'm like, I love the people that I played with online, met a lot of really cool people, a lot of great interactions, but there's more to life than just sitting in front of a PC terminal and doing end game content. Gotta get epic gear again. I gotta go to blues and greens until I can get the epic gear again. So my hobbies shift and change. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I still play chess by mail wherever it's still legal. I've never actually played a video game where you have online competition. I've never done that because I have way too many friends. I have friends everywhere, just out of friends.
Yeah. I stopped playing the role-playing games once I realized it was just that moment. I looked at my desk and I realized there was like 8 Mountain Dew bottles there, a half-eaten pizza slice, and I was just like, and food and drinks all over the desk, and I realized, holy shit, I'm doing my whole life is at this desk. And I'm spending all my time here. And I was just like, that's it. I'm done.
I don't understand. The trifecta of accomplishments in gaming to me was King's Quest, winning King's Quest, Leisure Suit Larry and the Land of the Lounge Lizards. Well, I mean, let's just say there's a certain amount of winning. You can feel, good about it.
Yeah.
And the original NES Zelda. After that, I was like, hey, girls. Yeah. And I remember my youngest brother, Jason, staying home skipping a half day of school to try and win, beat Metroid. And I thought to myself, okay, I got to do something about this. This is not healthy.
Yeah.
Well, I never played it.
Yeah, I kind of went away from it. And then when everyone left MySpace to go to Facebook, God damn, if that fucking Farmville game didn't fucking grab me and fucking hook me.
We all have a history, John. We all have a history.
Yeah, and I'm sure we all got up at 2:00 in the fucking morning to harvest our corn.
Oh man. So see, that was something I did like Catan, but it required, friends at a table, and it was getting a little geeky and people were talking smack, and I thought, okay, all right. Yeah. So you blocked me off with water. Big deal. You have more wood and brick than I. Okay, we need to move on to something more adult-like. Let's go.
I think that game hooked a lot of fucking 80s kids that had grown up playing a lot of those role-playing games and said, "Oh, look at this! I can harvest stuff and build."
Well, I mean, Farmville wasn't really 80s. That was more.
No. 2000. I said it took a lot of the 80s people that grew up, playing all the RGB games and stuff like that, and then like all of a sudden it's like Farmville. Oh, look at this!
and you forget. At least you forget. There was 2 games. You had to play 2 because, and that's when you would friend everybody on Facebook. You didn't care what their background was, how many mutual friends they had. You would invite them because you needed gifts. You needed milk and stuff in Farmville. And then the other one that we played till we were blue in the face was Mafia Wars. That was the other one. Mafia Wars was, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's like, like a bad nightmare coming back to haunt me.
Okay, does Catan or Memoirs 42 have any?
We're not quite in the boomer bracket. We're the boomers are in front of a young older than us.
Yeah.
Gen X. Boomers are like something around 65, I think, maybe.
Yeah,
66
right before us. It's like right before. We're on the cusp.
Yeah.
So we're boom Xers.
It
we're
counts.
Boom Xers.
It counts. You're looking good.
But well, hold on. I have a question for you guys, though. I mean,
go ahead.
Especially for John, because we're exactly in the same age bracket. How much of your youth was spent in the arcade?
Oh, fuck! From the moment I got home. And ours was right down the street, so we would bike ride there, and my mom had the number and to the arcade, and that guy knew every mom. It was hilarious. So he would pick up the phone and he'd go, all right, Grace, Phillip, Pino, John, it's time for dinner. Go home.
Our place was called Over the Rainbow.
We were horrible.
That was best because you actually had to make an effort to go play the game.
Yeah.
Okay. And you needed quarters. And it took, time, and your mom could find you. But like Karate Champ and that kind of stuff, I spent, I don't know how many thousands, like, the original, those like games, man, I used to like spend hours and hours. I don't know how many dollars and quarters, but sooner or later you run out of them and mom is going to whoop your ass. So
you want to know how many times I got yanked out of Rainbow ice cream by my ear? And I'm in the middle of like a serious game of Galaga. And then from behind you comes basically the Grim Reaper called your mother. And she
yanked
was
out of a pulpit.
livid with me. Man, my brother's up there too. My brother's 4 years younger than me, but she is livid. And we're up there just friggin' faces glued. I still never could really quite understand what the anger was aimed at. Was it the fact that the allowance that I earned for hard work out mowing lawns and doing whatever I wanted, and I took my hard-earned money, and I'm sorry, I pissed it away in an arcade machine, but she would come up there faster than Flash Gordon and come up there and go, Timothy Swift, you need to come home right now. And I'm like, but mom, wait. She's dragging me away while I'm having like one of the best Galaga games of my life.
You've got like a crowd around you. Yeah. They're all cheering you on. And she's just like, ear out. Your place was called Rainbow what?
Rainbow Ice Cream. It was on Lee Highway in Arlington, Virginia. And the first arcade games that my brother and I got addicted to, the Safeway on Harrison Street always had one, and it would periodically change. And it wouldn't matter what it was. We were up there getting addicted to it. Star Castle. Does anybody remember Star Castle?
I remember Star Castle. Yeah.
Star Castle was like the mutation of asteroids. Yep. And you had those different spinning layers of bars that you had to fly into and friggin' knock them out. Star Castle, Pac-Man. We were up there forever with Pac-Man.
Centipede.
They had Galaga up there. And then people started going, oh, no, you got to go to Rainbow Ice Cream. They got up way more. They must have had like 30 machines in that place. And it was an ice cream store. Like, you could go in and get
rats and that kind of
get a scoop of ice cream or whatever. But once you got past the ice cream thing, the whole back end of the place was just full up with friggin', stand-up.
My first was...
And change machines that take $10 bills, of course.
Yeah. The first arcade game, I could consider, because the shop across the street, that's early 70s, had the George of the Jungle pinball machine. And I don't know, you guys, Tim might remember that machine. And then the Dukes of Hazzard, the pinball machine, and something else. I can't remember. But yeah, I got hooked on pinball machines before there was we had the actual console games with pinball,
Yeah, you played pinball Pac-Man. And the standard kind of like clunky sort of mechanical things that they had available.
Yeah. So let's do this one here real quick. We'll start with Tim. I'll start with me.
Yeah,
I want to go
You
back.
go.
I want to go back to Rome. It's like I'm planning on going back this next summer. We're actually kind of setting it all up, but I already talked to the family. I was like, dude, we cannot all go in the same plane. That's just not right. So that's how I think. It's like if that plane were to crash, all the Truncalis would be on that fucking plane. So I'm like, we'll go days separate planes, mix us up. But I want to go back to Rome again, at least spend a few days there. My dream has always been to go to Egypt. I want to see the pyramids. I want to see the pyramids. I want to touch them. I want to see them. I don't want to climb them. I know you're not allowed to do that anymore, but I actually want to. I want to see them in person. Get to walk through them. Just to see that would be absolutely amazing for me. That
What you really want to do is you want to go spelunking under one of the pyramids and uncover some buried prince or somebody that is
I would
going
love
to end
that.
up making you famous, and tour the museums because you found some. What do they call it? What's the name?
A mummified.
No. Philip will know the name of it. Is it sarcophagus?
Sarcophagus.
Yeah, okay. There's your word for the day. If you guys can play that one in Scrabble, let me know.
You got to spell it right first.
Am I the dork of the show now? I mean, is that what
No. Because I know John wouldn't know that word.
I was saying it. I was going to say sarcophagus, but I was thinking you were going with the mummy part of it, mummified.
No, but that's what you typically find first. Yeah. is the sarcophagus.
My luck, I would find a mummified penis that was used as
anybody
a dildo.
in the
I'm
chat
thinking more like the movie The Descent. Spelunking's not my thing.
Is there anybody in the chat that thinks that sarcophagus is like the little brother to Snuffleupagus on Sesame Street?
If not, it should be. In Nebraska.
I don't know why. That just came to me in a thought, and I just was like, you know what? I bet you that Snuffleupagus' little brother. Sarcophagus.
Curtis makes a good point. Foosball was fantastic.
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
Foosball was a lot of
fun. Foosball. Yeah, and you know what? To this day, I still can't play that damn game.
There aren't as many foosball tables around anymore because it's just, I don't know, one too many kids got their eyes like knocked out with the ball. But when you get that power like goal, that feels good.
I got a foosball story for you.
Yes.
I used to work nights. And I always had to work the holidays because the trucking industry never shuts down. And my job was to deliver fuel to these trucking companies. So I always worked Christmas Eve into Christmas Day. But I would get home Christmas Day, like 4:30 in the morning, right? So I get home 4:30 in the morning. My wife saw, you got to put the presents together. And there was a bike. I put the bike together. And there was a foosball table, which I had no idea she bought, right? So I put this foosball table together, right? The kids get up, they start doing their presents, and they see the foosball table. They're excited. They always wanted one. So they get the ball out. They're getting ready to play, and they go, hold on. They're just staring at the thing. And I'm like, what's wrong? Did I do something wrong? And she goes, all the guys were backwards. I was so tired that I put all the foosball players pointing the wrong direction.
And you know what? You probably felt bad at the time, but it's not your fault, and you're not the last person to screw that up. Trust me.
But it's still a story that comes up every Christmas. My kids will always go, hey, Dad, you remember that time you put that foosball table together? I'm like, yeah.
I had to put a ping pong table together by myself in the garage when Deirdre and I first met. It was sort of around the time that I first was getting to know her children. So it was sort of a clutch, time there.
Yeah.
And I affixed this is one of those folding large full-size ping pong tables. Let's just say I fixed it in a way to where it would have folded upwards, and that's not the way you do it. So I had to take it apart and start over. Thankfully, right about 5 minutes till it's magic time.
Yeah.
It was done.
Yeah. A lot of pressure for Dad Christmas Day.
God, you have no idea.
So Timmy, where does Tim want to go?
Well, there'd be a ton of places I would love to go. I certainly feel like a tour of Europe of some kind, a little bit more all-inclusive tour of Europe. And the only reason I say that is because I have a real affinity for European rock, hard rock, and metal. I just feel like the '80s landed in Europe and it never left, and they've just somehow perfected it and perpetuated it to the point that any of the old schooler bands that are still kind of out there and trying to cut their, make waves. They try to write new music and just it doesn't translate the same as it did in the '80s. And I think that had a big thing to do with the fact that they had a lot of people helping them to write the music. So that when they're left to their own devices now, as aging rockers, and they kind of like turn inward and try to write for themselves. I'm not saying that they suck at it. It just doesn't have the same, kick behind it that it did back in the '80s. So over in Europe, you've just got a plethora of bands that span multiple countries. So I would love to do like a tour of Europe, like going through like Finland, Sweden, Netherlands really doesn't have rock and metal, but like France, places like that, and kind of do like some kind of a consolidated kind of tour. I would love to go, and I'm pretty sure this will happen pretty soon. I would love to go back to Brazil and experience that a little bit more on a full on level. Only reason why is because the last time I went, it was for a work trip that I had won, and we were only there for like 3 or 4 days or something like that. And so, we were in Copacabana, Ipanema, that area of Rio, and so we were quote unquote in the safest part of the town. But and you kind of like did what everybody else did because they warned you not to go out on the beaches at night and not get caught alone. And there's a lot of crime that goes
I
on
saw
there, and I'm sure
Teresa's.
tourists are a target. But I would love to go back. I know for a fact I'll be going back there at some point. But I ultimately, as much as I would love to get back to like Australia, New Zealand, and those areas, I feel like I did my tour of those. I mean, I have lots of great friends there, and I would love to visit again. But one of the places that I enjoyed the most on all my travels, and was fortunate enough to get to, I love the Netherlands. The Netherlands is just a really
Beautiful,
cool country. The people are just amazing in the Netherlands. I don't know. I just connected with them. Probably better than some of the other places. And there's places to go other than Amsterdam. I'm just letting you all know that everybody thinks that if they're going to go, you got to go to Amsterdam. Well, Amsterdam today is not what Amsterdam was like 30 years ago. The red light district is a completely different animal. It's not what you see in the movies or what was portrayed in the movies. It's a little bit more zoo-like, I guess is the best way to quantify it. Plus, it's also a very touristy city in the Netherlands. And so there's a lot of like riffraff and people asking you for money and begging and all this other stuff. So it can be a little annoying. So I found that like a town like Utrecht, which is not that far from Amsterdam, Utrecht is very much like Amsterdam in the sense that it's got the canal running through it.
Yeah, it's beautiful there.
You can walk through the city on the narrow streets and overlook the canal. What I liked more about Utrecht was that you could actually go down on the canal, which you really don't do in Amsterdam. So in Utrecht, you can actually walk down onto the canal causeways, and a lot of places have taken the old storage container or like the old storage cubbies, which are like, they look like bomb shelters in a weird way because they're scalloped. You know what I mean? It's like a airplane hangar, and they built restaurants and clubs and stuff into them. So you're right there on the canal. There's little boats coming through, and you're partying right there on the canal, and you're getting some of the best food you've ever eaten in your life. And it's very picturesque and really, really just a really cool country to go hang out in. And
I got a question for you, Tim, because I've never been there and I've never really heard about their food. What's the food like? What's the food situation? I mean, what is it more like German food?
I mean, I'm sure there's probably authentic, Dutch cuisine. I'm sure they probably have things that are indigenous to that area, but I didn't eat that stuff. All the food I ate there, I mean, there's nuancy stuff. So like when you go to eat, like in the Netherlands, yes, while you still kind of order your main dish for yourself, a lot of the other kind of like satellite foods that come out, like fries and and salads and things like that are all very communal. So it all just kind of sits there in the middle of the table, and you get like cheese and meat plates, and everybody just kind of picks off of it. But the best food I actually had in the Netherlands was at a place called Beers and Barrels. That was the name of the restaurant. And I know they have multiple locations throughout the Netherlands, but they had one right on the canal in Utrecht. And basically what it is, it's like a upscale barbecue joint. And
Really?
you go in and you can order like your own meal if you want to, but the best way to enjoy that place is to go with like 7 or 8 people. For us, it was obviously work related because that we were there for training and implementation and stuff. And you go there and then you just kind of order for the group. So you get like, they have these different kind of like platter things that you can get that has like ribs, wings, burgers and stuff. And they cook it all, smoke it all out back on green eggs. They have like 7 or 8 green eggs out back that you can't see, but they cook it all on green eggs and they bring it out, and it's some of the best barbecue you'll ever eat.
No seafood, just
you know what? I didn't get into the full blown menu. Obviously, you know, when you're traveling with people from work, there's different dietary needs. So I know that we had one guy that was like basically a vegetarian. So, you know, for him, he couldn't eat that sort of stuff. So I believe he got some form of a fish or something like that. Pescatarian. I think he could adapt. He wasn't like vegan in that regard, but he was vegetarian, pescatarian. Yeah, he could have other things like that. So a lot of times he would just get some kind of a fish. So I think they had.
I looked it up. It says it's heavily based on meats, breads, and potatoes.
Yeah,
meats, breads, and potatoes.
So basically, you have the meat sweats when you leave the joint. So then you just got to go keep drinking and go find a place to sweat it out. So.
I was always curious about the food there. I've never heard like bad things about the food there or good things. So I was just kind of wondering, like,
I don't ever recall anybody being, you know, if you go to this restaurant, you got to try this particular Dutch dish. Like they did have some things that seemed to be not so much Dutch, but more like gourmet kind of stuff. So it really has overall, I think, predominantly more of a standard cuisine kind of pipeline. Like, you know, it's regular like steaks and chicken and fish and
Belgium, Holland. These places have been around for a long time. Let's just say they got to eat. So they're probably doing something right.
It's the beer though. It's the beer. You gotta go and drink the indigenous beer because the alcohol content will just basically knock you on your ass. So
herring, Dutch. How about you, Philip? Where does Philip?
Thank you, gentlemen, for making this effort. I know it's painful. I know it's difficult.
Dude, 55 years I've been calling him Phil, my brother. It's going to be
very difficult for a lot of people, but I really appreciate the effort. I really do. Places that I'd like to go back to, close to the Netherlands. I'd like to go back to Belgium. I had such a great time, even in Brussels. I mean, just for a short time, we had an amazing food and. It was a complete screw up. We wouldn't have, ended up there if Sabina, hadn't caused us to miss our flight, and we ended up there for an extra night, and they put us up in this in this hotel, and we had the Grand Place all to ourselves. The mannequin to pay the little statue of the kid peeing in the fountain, etc. But there was an incredible restaurant there called Bruxelles Arm, I think it was, you can get everything there from steak au poivre to moule frite. And I got to tell you, mussels are mussels, but this place, this was the original mussel, the first one, the very first, the one by which all other mussels are judged. In the perfect saffron, sort of just light, not overly buttery or anything, just perfect. And the place was it had that ambiance. It was just, everybody was having a great time. If there was a murder, people would have been like, "That's too bad." It was just fantastic, and it was just an experience that I'm grateful for because it was completely and totally unplanned and by chance. Just a lucky break there because I don't know. So if there's any place that I want to go, I was for a long time a fairly avid climber. I guess I summited Rainier when I was very young, and since that time, of course, we've had injury after injury. The foot's doing well, the boot's off, but had to have 2 knee surgeries, and so I'm doing about as well as I hope to do before I die. So I think I probably want to like make my way over to the Swiss Alps at some point and give
Oh
something
wow.
interesting a try. Rainier is nothing. It's 14,411 feet.
Yeah.
It's when you hear that, it's nothing, exciting, but the sheer mass of the mountain. I mean, it puts all other mountains in the lower 48 to shame. I mean, you could fit, I don't know how many Mount Whitneys inside or Shastas inside.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Think of 5 Mount Hoods, and then probably double that just in terms of the volume. But I made it to the top of that, did a lot of climbing in the Tetons. I'd like to make it to the Alps there. At the very least, put on some skis. That'd be fun. Maybe not make it to the top of the Matterhorn, but yeah, we could try and ski it. Same likelihood of death.
Yeah, I was mad at myself. I was supposed to go on the Shasta hike in 2009 when I was in decent shape to do it. And when I saw my brother-in-law's photos with my father-in-law, that also he made it all the way almost to the top, but he ended up getting what do you call it, sickness,
Altitude sickness.
altitude sickness. So
If you don't breathe and get it out quickly, you are not going to make it. And there's nothing you can do about that.
He finally got to the top, and the pictures that they took from the top of that mountain was just absolutely amazing. Just how clear the sky was. The air was so clean and clear. And to get up there, and there's just this big, huge metal box up there, and you open this box up and there's a book in there, and you sign your name and the date, and just to go through that book and see the names that are in there and how far back the dates are on this just would have been just awesome.
It's exhilarating to make it to the top of any mountain. There are rock climbing technical climbs that require ropes and things like that, and then there are ice climbs which require crampons and ice axes. And we had this kid, the back of our rope team, fall waist deep into a 300-foot crevasse. I've never heard anything like that when he screamed. It scared the living shit out of me. It was 2 a.m. We had to have headlamps on because it was frozen, and we had to stake him in his bag to the side of the glacier because he couldn't go on. He was hysterical, and it was just the way it is. Out of 30 of us, I think 8 of us made it, and I barely did. If it weren't for this we had a woman rope leader who I swear to God would beat the shit of all 3 of us at once. She kept calling me little bitch, which was the nicest thing I was called. I think I was just scared of what she might do if I quit. And she's the only reason I made it up there.
This was their photos of that climb as they were going up, and it's just absolutely amazing. You had to sign an insurance form. You had to pay money. If you're not back by a certain time to a certain checkpoint, then they send the helicopters up to get you. It's just, that's the peak at the top. But
did they make you take any sort of ice climbing class beforehand or not?
No, he said that's the scary thing. You just go and sign a piece of paper, pay the insurance money, and go. And if you don't make it, you have to make it to a certain point by a certain day before you can finish. They will not allow you to finish if you don't get to that one point in that allowed amount of time.
But you don't have to, there's no glacier. You don't actually have to have on crampons or go in the middle of the night. For example, Rainier, you have to take at least 2 days worth of ice climbing lessons. I mean, that's it. They won't let you on the mountain. Shasta used to be, there's nothing, hey, I'm not putting it down at all, but it's mostly snow free for the most part. And yes, it is a long, tiring, exhausting, in some places steep walk, but it's not a technical sort of thing. It's just
this is the endurance. Top. This is the very top. Yeah, they've done Mount Whitney after this one. They did Whitney after this one. They did a couple. He got hooked. He got hooked from that trip right there, and he started climbing mountains. And he turned into a trail runner. So he does those 100-mile marathons through the woods.
That's insane. I think Whitney has a couple of very difficult trails.
Ooh, yeah,
it can be.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Hobbies. Mine is hiking and photographs. That's it. I don't have anything else that I enjoy I was never really a hobby guy. So, I mean, I got into hiking
You
because
didn't have any garage stuff that you did where you're like,
You mean you
honey,
don't
I'm going
have
out
like
to the
an
garage, and you built something or tore things down or
I
repaired
built,
things or
I got hooked on Volkswagen Bugs in the 80s. I probably purchased and restored 10,
there you
15 of
go.
them.
That's a hobby. That's a hobby.
Yeah, to the point where
Eventually,
the
I'm going to need some
DMV,
advice.
yeah, to the point where the DMV sent me a letter saying that I couldn't buy another car without be getting my sales license to be a dealership. Yeah, because
Wow.
I was turning them over.
What
And
what 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 was your attachment to Volkswagen Bugs? Why that car
I don't know what it
specifically?
was. They were just easy to work on. That engine, you could take it out of the car by yourself with a jack. It was just so easy the parts were everywhere. There were so many of them. And in the 80s, the Volkswagen swap meets were everywhere. You could
Yeah.
literally go to a Volkswagen swap meet, get a door, get a window, get a mirror, get a Volkswagen, what do you call it, logo thing, or the hood ornament. Volkswagen was everywhere, and my pride and joy was found. I was just driving down the street, and the garage was just open enough to where I could see it, and I saw a split window. And as soon as I saw the split window, I was like, "Oh shit!" So I pulled over, and I asked her, and she opened the garage, and it was a 1956 split window ragtop,
Wow.
original owner, brought from Germany. It's been sitting in the garage for almost 25 years. When I bought it, it didn't run. And I asked her, do you want to sell this? She said her husband passed away. She had all the service books from Germany to Modesto for the shop back in the 60s when they brought it over here. And she goes, well, it's my husband's. He passed away. We have no grandkids, no kids. She goes, give me $800 for it. And I go, no, 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 no. I said, I'll give you 1,500 for it, because I said, this is what this car, this is 1980, what is it, 86. So it was worth a little more than I didn't want to rip her off. I was like, no, I said, this car's worth a little bit more than that. She goes, well, it doesn't run. It doesn't do. 20 minutes I had the thing running.
Mensch.
That's
Yeah, there's
crazy.
no way. There's no way I'm screwing over an old lady.
Mensch.
That's cool. Well,
Yeah.
I asked because my first car was a 1968 Chevy Impala, which was a
Oof.
tank. Got it
My
for
dad's.
$1 from a fellow friend teacher of my mother's. But my second car was a 1980 automatic stick shift Volkswagen Bug.
Yeah.
And that's a trip. So you're like, wait a minute. Now today, you get the little paddles and stuff, and you can go and you can kind of do your you can do your manual shifting if you want to. But that automatic stick shift thing was kind of trippy because I learned to drive, on a stick shift. So I had the skill for it. This was before automatic vehicles were all the rage.
Yeah.
But I had a 1980 automatic stick shift Bug. The thing was ugly as hell. It was white. It had a lot of like Mr. Potato Head parts on it to kind of keep it together. Like the family I got it from, the dad was kind of keeping it running. But I even remember the paint job specifically was literally like someone went down to like the corner Ace Hardware store and got like 2 gallons of like Bear paint and like painted that Bug with like a broom. You could see the brush marks. It was so thick. and
Did
I
it have
and I
the
was
old like long throw stick shift or the rapid
yeah,
fire?
it was like center down on the floor stick, and then you didn't have 3 pedal. You didn't have a traditional clutch like you do
Right.
in a manual vehicle. Basically, what you did was you would just get the car up to RPM. So from like 0 to about 30, 35 was your low, and then when you got at that point, you let off the gas and you push down on the stick, and then you throw it or drop it into the higher gear, and then that would take you from like 35 to 65, 70, whatever you were legally allowed to drive at that time. So it was a little weird, because you had to shift
Yeah, you
but it
had
was
to. Yeah.
automatic. So it was just more of a gap timing kind of thing. But I remember specifically, I always had to take my shit over to Billy at the Amoco on Lee Highway because the points would always get out of whack, and he would always have to readjust the points, so it would turn over and start. So
Yeah.
I think the points were like little kind of like electrodes. So like when you went to turn the car over, it would get its spark from these points, and the timing would be off if they weren't positioned right. So he would have to constantly adjust the points. So it would say, and I got personalized license plates on it. I was heavily into the band. I was a metalhead at that point. Well, I was in high school at that point, so I was a huge metalhead at that point in the game. I had like you, Philip, I had kind of moved out of the hair metal glam rock vibe, and I had influential friends around me like, oh, you can't listen to Motley Crue, you got to listen to Anthrax. And so I went from like Anthrax to Slayer, Metallica. Like I got into the heavier stuff to the point where I was listening to Venom. Everybody knows the band Venom. I'm pretty sure they're actually still around and still play.
Still around.
Yeah, but I actually had personalized license plates, and my personalized license plates were Warhead, which was one of the names of their songs.
Nice.
But of course, you could only have 6 letters on your plate at that time, so I had to abbreviate it. So it was WARHED, Warhead.
HED
on the bug.
On the bug.
On the love bug. I love this. By the way, the points, that same problem permeated my experience in the 1986 Saab, which is quite frankly the only car. It was I bought it used for maybe a couple of grand because I was in a pickle. And it caught fire like in the middle of a large highway in Denver, Colorado. Yeah, bad idea. But yes, it taught me how to deal with things like, well, let's just see, a really, really finicky stick shift. It wasn't even a turbo. I mean, we're talking like this thing was just a piece of junk I was using for a couple of months just until I could afford to buy something appropriate and safe. It was kind of like, driving a go-kart at 75 miles an hour on the highway. It was ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Volkswagen taught you to be a mechanic. It taught you to fix.
No, this was the Saab. Same sort of feel. But in this case, what he mentioned about the points and how it wouldn't turn over constantly. Yeah. And of course, oil dripping in the gas pan is always something that you just, it's not a good thing.
And Volkswagen had no heat.
My buddies would always turn the heater on. I go, fuck, there's the vents on the floor open.
Exactly. Yeah, just open them up. Yeah, it's coming right off the engine. You're sitting on top of it because you're in the back
Volkswagens. I've had Volkswagens since I bought my first car out of college. It was the first Passat, and out of the sky dropped this Passat with nothing but cloth and a knobby Brolwood stick shift and a V6 engine. That thing flew into medians on occasion. Airbags deployed to save my ass. But the truth is, no VW has air conditioning that's even it's barely mediocre.
Yeah, it was
American cars are they have air conditioning. They may not have anything else, but the air conditioning in American cars cannot. It's by far and away the best.
Yeah, when we graduated, we would save our money, and then our parents would pay the rest of it. So we got to kind of pick the kind of car we wanted after we graduated. And my brother wanted a 1968 El Camino that was just souped up and just, I mean, my dad went over there, turned the key, and it was my dad looks at my brother and goes, no, absolutely not. And it wasn't that it was loud or it was just, it was the fact that it was an El Camino, because back east in Philadelphia, the El Caminos, they used those for the funeral procession. That's what the car they put all the flowers in. So my dad goes, why do you want this funeral car? This is a funeral car.
You bought a hearse?
No, it's El Camino.
No, I know.
Yeah, but they used to put all the flowers in the El Camino in the back trunk part, and that would be at the front of the procession. Of the funeral procession.
Is this a Philadelphia thing, Italian thing, or an Italian?
It's East Coast thing. It's the East Coast thing. The El Camino, that was their car that they had all the flowers in. So my dad goes, no. So I come home, I graduate high school, I'm saving my money, and I go to the dealership, and it's a 1982 Corvette. So I come home with this Corvette. My dad's like, "Oh, that's a beautiful car. Love it. Great car. My brother Phil comes out of the house. fuck that shit. You can't have that car. That's bullshit. I couldn't have the El Camino. I had to buy a Buick Regal. He bought a Buick Regal instead. And my dad goes, that's a good practical car.
Gentlemen, if your parents can help, all I know is this: you should ask your parents for help with that car. Otherwise, you end up, salvaging your pride, but almost burning alive in a sob on the middle
I
of the
didn't buy
freeway
it.
like
Yeah.
me, because I didn't want to. I was too proud to ask them for anything. Trust me when I tell you, in retrospect, I almost died. I should have, asked them for help.
They wanted us to have a good car. They're like, you graduated high school. We want you to have a good car because you're going to go to school. You got to get places. And, it was that moment where they realized Dad couldn't take you here. Dad couldn't take you there because there was 3 of us. So the car thing after graduation was like a big deal. Buy a good car, make sure it runs. If you can afford a newer car, grab a newer car. So I end up coming home with a 1982 Fiat Spider 2000 convertible, which was the wrong car to buy because that thing broke down more times than anything I could imagine.
Yeah, that's like the wrongest car. If there was the wrong car to buy, that's pretty close right there. I mean, Saab 900 non-turbo being number 2 on the list.
Yeah.
But it was only because it was my senior year of college, and I didn't want them to be disappointed. I just wanted to get through it.
Get through it. Yeah, you're gonna beat. You needed a beater, and I kind of thought that too. I was like, okay, this is gonna be my first car. I should just buy a beater. I just need something to get to A to B.
It caught on fire in the middle of Colfax. The fire department came. I was on my way to a job interview. It was. If I've ever been embarrassed, I don't know that I really have. I hid behind like a restaurant in the bushes. I was like, fuck.
All right, this one should be interesting. This one should be an interesting question. Tim, what was the first poster you put up on your wall? The first poster you put up on your wall.
Oh my God.
So not the first one given, but the first one used.
Yeah, the first one you went out and bought.
I remember. This is driving me nuts. I feel like I'm loud as heck. I'm probably gonna say that it was probably that classic Farrah Fawcett poster of her in the red bathing suit. That, like, if you look up Farrah Fawcett online and you find some of her older pictures when she was much younger, I think that was my very first one. I was gonna say I remember the very first poster that I bought for the next door neighbor friend. It was a Fonzie poster. I remember that because he was a big Fonzie freak. But I would probably say one of my first ones, aside from all of the posters that you got that you would drag out of the middle of like Kerrang magazine and Circus magazine, the metal magazines, had to probably be Farrah Fawcett.
The Farrah Fawcett poster.
Farrah Fawcett. Everyone knows that pic. Basically,
the
her in that
famous Farrah Fawcett poster that everybody.
Everybody had that. Everybody. I mean, I never had any of the Velvet. Remember the Velvet posters? You could get like the blacklight Velvet posters. I never had any of those, but I definitely remember that one. I think most of the posters I had, even after that, were probably just metal bands.
Yeah, the Velvet ones was always the freaky ones your uncle would bring over the house with like Elvis playing the piano or fucking something.
Yeah, it'd be like stuff that you really didn't want a poster of. I do remember though having
tiger. Remember the tigers?
Yes, yes. And I just remember a lot. I remember having a massive fascination with posters because like you would go to the corner drugstore and they had like a poster kind of carousel thing with the flippy.
Yep.
Little kind of like book pages, and they had posters on both sides, and you would look, and I always remember there was like you'd see the poster that you liked, and you look down in the right hand corner, and there'd be the letter number combination that would identify the poster that you were looking for, and then you would go over to the poster rack, which was kind of like a like a golf bag setup, where you had like all the posters in these different little slots, and you'd have to find the poster with the letter and the number letter
on the bottom of it,
so you knew you got the right one. Yeah,
we had those.
Anna Nicole Smith. Oh my goodness, she was a beautiful woman.
I didn't do a lot of like the chick poster thing though. It was more metal bands, if anything.
I think.
You're gonna laugh. My first one, Farrah Fawcett poster was my second one, but my first one, you're gonna laugh. It was Bruce Lee. with the nunchucks. I just had to have the
that's a
Bruce Lee
classic.
poster, dude.
Yeah, that's a
And the
classic.
Bruce-
Yeah,
Yeah, that's some shit right there. Well done.
yeah, that was it. For us, yeah, but these guys that are watching this show right now, that's a younger group. They're like Bruce Lee.
Yeah, like, well, because those were our idols back then. I mean, I
Yeah.
think Chuck Norris was around as part of that, but no
He
one
didn't
really
have a
had
poster.
we weren't
Yeah.
like latched on to like the Chuck Norris jokes. That wasn't a thing back
Yeah.
then. So Chuck Norris didn't have as much popularity as, say, Bruce Lee did.
I had nunchucks. I thought Chuck Norris was a pussy.
Well, and let's be realistic. I think I would gather to say that more than likely I probably had 1 or 2 Star Wars posters because I mean I was part of that group that went and stood in line that wrapped around the corner in the 70s to go see, or is it the 80s? I guess it was when did Star Wars come out?
77,
78. It was late
77,
70s.
78.
It was in the 70s.
Yeah.
And went and watched the first movie that ever came out, the original Star Wars. Probably went and saw it like 4 or 5 times, and had to have certainly had a Star Wars poster of some kind during that era.
Well, okay, Philip, what was that first poster up on your wall, buddy?
Boy, I've been trying to think about which one it was. I don't know. It's very possible it was that picture of Ed Sullivan with the Beatles and Peter, Paul, and Mary. I have to be honest with you.
Oh, wow.
I know. It's all I knew at the time. Although it could have been, and I swear I cannot remember the model's name. Holy cow, she was the well-placed mold, just tremendous, gorgeous woman.
Oh, the guest girl? Are you talking about?
Possibly?
Yeah, what's her name? Because that was Anna Nicole Smith.
No, not Nana. No, before that.
Oh, the other one. Oh,
She's
the
recently done a line of clothing with the beautiful Mexican woman from the show. Oh God, help me! This is ridiculous.
I know who you're talking about.
Wow, Cindy Crawford.
Cindy Crawford. Yeah.
Thank God. Okay. We are not going senile yet. I think I had one of those, and then I started dating this really, really beautiful woman who kept staring at her ass and saying things like, "My ass is better." And I thought, I need to get rid of this poster before I say something stupid. Yeah, well, and I think,
that's a classic poster right there. I remember my buddy having that poster.
remember the one where she's like wearing these ridiculously short, low cutoff jeans, and you can just see the beginnings of the Golden Palace of the Himalayas, so to speak. Well, I was up for a very short time. It was very just not my brand. I have no problem with people. It's just I was more of the oh gosh, let's just say I was a bit of a geek. But I did have an Iron Maiden Killers album cover poster that was larger than anything that my mother was going to stand for.
Yeah.
But I remember during that time, I took that poster and I sat down and I don't know how large the drawing paper was, but I took canvas and I did a pretty good sketch, full, those number, what kind of pencils those were that were very soft that you sketch with. It took me days, but it wasn't, just sketching, on top of it, or, it was just looking at it, sketching because it was just, I was a huge horror movie fanatic. I mean, I remember I've probably seen The Thing more times than anyone. Well, I don't want to talk about it, but movies like that, the body horror stuff, things like Aliens, everything to do with that, just loved them. And more than anything, I was just completely fascinated by creature makeup artists like Rick Baker or Tom Savini. I was really good at putting on people to this day. When I do my zombie, which I'm not really allowed to do anymore, you put enough liquid latex and fake blood in the right place and shadows, and you're not allowed to come into the party. My best friend Andrea, Steve's wife, she won't look at me anymore, so I have to stop doing that. But I got pretty good at it, and there's something about that the whole Iron Maiden, they're all of the props and the Eddie and all the different some of them are very, very impressive, complex paintings, drawings, and I just just the way the blood dripping off the X. Anyway, I had that right next to Monet, probably.
That's a good
It was
comment.
that. No, it was that.
Is that
What's
the
that?
yan to the yin? Is that what
Yeah.
that's called?
I don't know. My mother, tried to even out the balance here.
Yeah.
I definitely had I remember had a very large. See, I had that. I had an Ozzy Osbourne Ultimate Sin, which is a terrible record. Great album cover.
Yeah.
Had a larger than life
So
Charlatans UK.
did any of you actually pin up a Playboy centerfold picture up on your wall?
No, I did not, but I can tell you what I did do is that I found out where my dad had them hidden in the bedroom, and he kept them in a footlocker at the end of the bed, like underneath the winter clothes. Remember when your mom had the winter clothes footlocker at the end of the bed, and he hid them underneath all the winter clothes. And so we figured out where it was. So we would go and we would sneak one, and we would go back to our room and giggle.
That's all you found in the footlocker? Lucky bastard.
I didn't dig too much, but I mean, because I pretty much was on a one-track mission at that point. It was like find the nudie mags,
I can see Tim. And that's she likes long walks on the beach. She likes long walks on the beach.
Oh, you know that we owned the Penthouse just to read the articles.
It was like every one of those chicks. I'm sorry, not said chicks. Women said on there, it always said love long walks on the beach at night. And like that was like every kid in the 80s was like, all right, I gotta get to the beach.
I know, and he get to the beach and he drinks Johnny Walker too. I figured I needed to get some Johnny Walker while I was at it.
But they had some of the best grown-up jokes in that magazine, and you couldn't wait to share them with your friends if you got an opportunity.
Heck yeah.
The 60s and 70s Playboys, that my best friend's father had them all in the attic, which happened to be right off his room, not even trying to hide them.
Yeah.
Those were interesting and extraordinarily
very political. Very political during that time.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And I mean, most definitely the gentleman's version, if there ever was, of that magazine with, topless, but, barely. And a great deal of, content that had nothing to do with photos.
No, I think a lot of people forget how much of how many great journalists came from that era through that magazine, and the articles that were actually some of the best articles on Martin Luther King. I mean, the list goes on and on and on that were written in that magazine. It wasn't just about naked women.
No, definitely not.
Well, no, because it was like a gentleman's magazine, right? Because they were trying to be a little bit more high profile. It wasn't like the Cherry and the Wee magazines that you go into the 7-Eleven and you just hated it because they had the little thing in front of it that blocked the front cover, and you were like,
and even at the height of their departure from journalism, let's just say they were tame in comparison to what's out there.
Yeah. All right, Tim, the best piece of advice you have ever been given.
The best piece of advice that I've ever been given. You know what? Unfortunately, I don't have like some epiphany kind of like this person like just kind of dropped some philosophical statement on me. I think I have two that I probably would live by. So I think the one that I think I primarily live by, and that just sort of describes my personality, is that if you can't laugh at yourself, who else can you laugh at? And the reason why I say that is because I'm comfortable with my faults. I realize that I have several of them, which maybe some aren't correctable at this stage in the game. I'm just who I am in general terms. So I'm okay with pointing out. And if people follow me on Facebook or whatever, and you see me post, I pretty much tear myself down. I kind of like jab at myself a lot and kind of poke fun at my own sort of weird inconsistencies. So there was that one that I would say that's probably the most prominent one. And that one's just sort of, in the pipeline of euphemisms. And then the other one is just, life's too damn short.
Yeah.
So I would say those are my two big ones.
My dad always said that one in Italian. I never got it until I got a little bit older.
Well, would you say that you enjoy making light of yourself because, perhaps you are fairly maybe not confident, but self-actualized?
Well, because I realize that I'm quirky and weird, and that I kind of, have my own sort of like, sense of humor, the way I kind of like visualize and translate particular things. So, I kind of laugh at myself a lot because of some of the, goofy stuff that I do. And when I'm even in my own presence, you know what I mean? Like there's no one around to see what just happened. You know what I mean? So I've just kind of come to terms with the fact that I'm imperfect, and that's okay. And so, to go ahead and make light of that for the sake of making someone else laugh, it's a little bit easier, I think, sometimes to point the finger at yourself and laugh about your own shortcoming or your own, mix up or mess up or whatever. And if it, puts a smile on someone's face, I'm okay with kind of like jabbing at myself first before I go out and stand on a soapbox and try to be funny at someone else's expense. I find that, I don't know, maybe that whole embracing of that element of myself. So if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at?
Yeah. Bravo.
How about you there, Phillip?
Let me see. Never negotiate against yourself. That doesn't necessarily mean any one thing. You can apply it to buying a house. You can apply it to working on relationship issues. Find out what the other person wants. Shut the fuck up and wait until they're finished telling you what you need to know.
Yeah.
Number 2, it's kind of but actually there's 3. Sort of to Tim's point, I think it's important that I bravo on that. I think it has to do with, life is way too complex, too seriously, not to be taken lightly. And if you can't take yourself, I really don't know if I want to say this. Let's just say if ever I had a problem, it was being maybe a little too overconfident, maybe a little too assured. It was never cocky. It was just one of those things where it didn't occur to me to be nervous or worried about certain things. Well, I'm doing my best, maybe a little bit later than I should, to sort of temper that with some real humility. Not to say that we're suddenly worried about everything, but yeah, I think it's important that Levy, being able to laugh at yourself and more and less knowing how you. I mean, quirks. God, I would never want to spend more than 24 hours with someone who is exactly like me. I
think we're all like that, though.
Well, no, I've spent my entire life, going, across the country to college, living in various cities, exploring, because, I mean, as much as I enjoyed and am grateful that I grew up in a very nice place, I couldn't wait to get out of here because it was just always necessary for me to meet and experience new, people, things. And I've always, perhaps maybe, in the last 20 years, am I starting to really stop and think, I think I've always been a very good guy, but let's just say not always as aware or mindful of how I project it to others. So yeah, I'm trying. And finally, what was the last one? Oh yes, my best friend Steve, his firstborn. This is 17 years ago. His first daughter was born, Ada. And we'd been at the hospital for, I don't know, 18, 24 hours or something. We finally get back to his place. Andrea wanted to sleep. Ada was in the maternity ward. We get back to his place. He pours us a small little bit of scotch. I said, "How you feel?" It's like, "I feel great." I said, "Tell me how you're feeling." He's like, "Well, I'm scared, but millions of people far less competent than I am have done this before. I'm going to be fine." That was it.
Yeah. Those are good ones. My mom, the one that
I was scared to death for him because I just knew him way too well. He's a great father. He's got 3 now.
Yeah. my mom used to say, well, I can't really say it in Italian, but it basically it goes, as long as there's life, there's hope. And it's something she used to say all the time, like, because I was sick a lot, and I would get like kind of depressed that I was sick because I used to have febrile seizures, and she used to say that to me, and it always kind of didn't hit me until what it meant until I got a little bit older. But I use it all the time. I sometimes say it to my kids, and they kind of give me a dirty look. But to me, as long as there's life, there's hope, and I always say that to people. I try to say it in Italian, but I just can't say it in Italian anymore. But that's the only one.
For us. It sounds better in English.
Yeah, or she'd say,
No, I like
she would say, "Guave why setene," which means if those who have troubles are their troubles, don't make them yours. So that's something she used to say to me all the time too. So I used to say that to my grandmother, and that would get my she would tell me some sobs just to fuck with her. She would tell me some sob story in Sicily, and I would always look at my grandma and go, "Why setene?" And she'd get so fucking
gosh.
mad.
Once you actually have family and what not to look after and look out for. Oh God, that's great advice. It's the implementation that takes a little extra work. But yeah,
she would tell me like stories about Mussolini, and I would be like, why is it there? And she would get so angry at me. You need to know these stories. You need to know these stories.
What a putz.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit too. So
yeah, quite frankly, the JV Bush League piece of shit too, which is pitiful. No, man, that's good. I like that.
I'm glad we did this. I'm glad we got a little bit of a show just about us and get our ideas. And before we take off, I know we ran a little late, but the last question I have for both of you guys, and it's kind of a big one. And I'll start with you, Phillip. Why do you feel that you've gotten involved in this vaping as an advocacy? Why do you feel? What drew you into this?
Because no one I know of smoked more or longer than I did, and if it worked for me, it can work for anyone. That's it.
And that's what drives you every day to get out there, get on Twitter, post, come on this show.
No one. I mean, no one that I've ever met, no matter who, smoked as much as I did at 35 and was able to quit using the most rudimentary form of e-cigarette. And I mean, I was able to do it. It took me, 14 months of trying to, find supplies. There weren't exactly, stores on every corner back then, but also I did, my time because I was just so amazed and a little freaked out that it was working that I had to find every little bit of research I could on what this was and why is it not killing me just the same? Yeah. As it turns out, it really is a miracle. And yes, I do believe that anyone who wants a better, longer, healthier life can have it. And there just aren't that many people that were as resigned to smoke forever, who had smoked as long as I did, who were that just. I mean, like I said, it was something I never planned to stop. And this was something that worked, and it's to this day, it's incredible. So yes, I think it's sort of
the reason I asked this question because it's perfect because us three individuals, we don't have a stake in this. We don't own a company, we don't own a shop, we don't own an e-liquid manufacturer. We don't have anything that if tomorrow everything shuts down, we're going to have a hard time getting our vape stuff, but it's not going to financially hurt us. So I'm always curious the drive, the push that individuals like us have for this cause when we have literally nothing really other than, well, I'm not going to say our health isn't worth something, but we literally don't have anything value money wise that is involved in this industry. So I'm always curious.
I think everybody's story is important. I also think that there are a few people, accidental quitters. That's great. That's wonderful. But that was not me. Okay. I had to work at it just like everything else. And the fact that it worked at all, it's truly astonishing to this day. And most of all, it's just, yeah, when I figured this out, so many people, when I went to college, everybody it seemed like they could just smoke when they drank and just gave it up. Quit doing drugs, quit, the fast living, and just went and another half pack every year. And next thing you know, you're in a very high stress, business, and you're smoking, 2.5 packs a day. And I swear to you, it's because I feel that it's just been so long and it was so extraordinary that yes, I'm compelled to make sure that people, and I'm still trying to find the right way to help, but I think it's necessary that I tell people that there is a better way. That's all.
Yeah. How about you, Timmy?
I mean, I don't think that my reasoning is too far off from what most people's reasoning would be. Like you said, I mean, we don't have anything to shield, right? So, I mean, it's not like we're going to lose a business or our livelihoods if it goes away. Um, I like to think of myself as someone who likes to teach. Maybe that's just because my mom was an educator for 40 something years in the school system. Um, but when, I started to kind of have my own, you know, come to Tim moment in life when I'm like, okay, the smoking thing's not doing me any good in reality. I don't know why I'm in denial so bad because I'm whatever it is I'm rebelling about. That if I have to take one health step in my life, it would certainly be trying to remove that from my life. But that came with caveats, and I wasn't prepared to go cold turkey or anything like that. So when that opportunity presented itself and I saw that the immediate benefits of actually getting into vaping and using it as a cessation method, and then also understanding more about the fact, really, yeah, I mean, it was about my own discovery about what it was I was doing, and then understanding just the overall benefit of vaping for those who struggle with the habit of smoking. So
Yeah.
I was motivated, primarily to ensure that, you perpetuate that message. And if there's any one person you can help, even if it's only one person at a time, I mean, I realize our stage is a little bit bigger here, but we're just talking to fellow vapors most of the time. But when you have an opportunity to go, hey, look, here's this alternative. I think, and then I realized that was in conjunction with how steadfast people are trying to take that away from us, to basically remove something that we know is an answer to ending that misery of smoking for so many years and decades and all that, and the damage that it does to you. I was more or less motivated by the consumer advocate mindset, like myself. It's just like everybody else in the chat. Yes, you do it for yourself,
Yeah.
but of course, the thing is, there's something bigger to preserve here, and that is that I found it, you found it, you found it, they found it. That means other people can find it as well, and they're going to thank themselves. They don't need to thank us necessarily, but they can thank themselves for finally finding the answer that helped them to kick those stinkies.
Yeah.
And so really it's more about being able to preserve that ability for those out there to have a choice. And it really comes down to, we can say we're smarter than the ants and all that other stuff, but we know the science. We understand the less harmful impact that vaping has on our bodies when we consider what we were doing to ourselves ultimately in the, prior to that. So but we just realized that we have a bigger thing to save here, and that is that we want people to continue to have that choice and have those options available to them. If it doesn't work for you, I completely understand that. I'm not going to fault you for
Right.
saying vaping wasn't the thing for you. But ultimately it's about being able to continue to have that possibility for people who are still searching, and those who have recently found it, who aren't as connected as we are or have the platform that we do, and have them still be able to kind of pursue that winning combination. So yeah, I mean, I'm just driven by the fact that I can educate people and be a part of the preservation.
Yeah.
And
For
you
me,
both,
it was
I just want to mention one thing,
yeah,
Tim. You
yeah,
do a hell of a job with that, and yeah, I can absolutely see Professor Swift. Well
yeah,
done. But I also think that a number of people my age, even the people that opened up the first shop, my friends that opened up the first shop that became a distributor in the Southeast, they've all, they've all hushed up, they've given up, they've burned out for reasons ranging from, burnout to, not wanting because they didn't want to put their reputations of their business at risk, because this is not this advocacy is not let me see held in high regard. I don't know, it's one of those things that I've really never had a problem with. Maybe it's the whole idea of being independent businessman. It doesn't matter. There are a lot of people that were very adamant about this technology and this advocacy that have kind of shied away from it because it was not in vogue anymore. And that's when, I guess, for better or for worse, I decided, well, if it's got to be done, it's got to be done.
yeah. Yeah, for me, it was just I was angry. It was just like I found something and it was working. And for me, I had this really because I lived in a small town. I didn't have the benefit of a larger city where I had shop here, shop there, shop here. There was 2 shops in Modesto, and the first one, I got was at a kiosk in the mall. So I was like, okay, this is cool because I went from the blues to this, and I was absolutely amazed that this worked. And I too was like you, Philip. I mean, I was a 2.5 pack a day smoker. I was in a truck for 10 to 12 hours a day driving. My only thing that I had was
And you
that pack of
loved
cig.
to
Yeah,
smoke.
yeah, I loved every fucking minute of it. But it was just, that's what I had, and I found something, and then I found Zamplebox, and then I said, "Oh my god, I can buy liquids at a vape shop." I didn't know nothing about the vape shop, and I found this shop, and I was just going in there, and it was just all this stuff that was available to me, every flavor under the sun. And here I am just now getting into it, and all of a sudden, bam, we're taking this away. And I was just like, well, wait a minute. This is working. I'm looking around. I'm seeing people that I've known for years that were like I was a pack and a half, 2 packs, 2.5 packs a day smokers that finally found something that was working. And now it's just slowly being taken away from them. And I just couldn't understand it. I was just so upset. And then that was early into it. So I was just like, I started looking around. I was like, who's doing something about this? Who's out there doing it? And it was at that time, everybody was kind of scattered. We had a few groups here, a few groups here. Nobody seemed to be together with the same purpose and the same drive to try to save it. Everybody was trying to save little portions of it, which that upset me the most. It was like, the shop guys were trying to save the shop guys. The manufacturers were trying to save the manufacturer stuff. The websites were trying to save their business. And I think early on in the stages, I always said to myself, God, if you 3 would just get together, the shops, the websites, the manufacturers, get together. You guys could have saved this back in 2016. You could have put some,
Hell, I found vaping in 2010, and I
yeah,
remember my first trip to the Alabama State Capitol was in 2012, 2013, I think.
13. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere
So
around that they were trying to close vape
but it
shops.
was still everybody was still kind of fighting for their own thing. That was the problem. Instead of just trying to save vaping as a whole, just save it. We
About
can worry
saving
about the
lives,
logistic. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, quit worrying about the other logistic parts of it. The shops were upset that the websites were outselling them because they had lower, no employees, no this, no that. The shop was arguing that they couldn't do this and they couldn't do that. If they would have just said, "Hey, let's try to save this industry in a whole," I think it would have made a little bit of difference. I don't know, but at
As far
that
as I'm
point,
concerned, shops that have no interest in harm reduction, and it's only bottom line, they are likely to go out of business.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, they
I mean,
closed the
it's
door
just
in 2016 with that 2012, 2016. They closed the door on that. So they shops weren't allowed to say anything. But prior to that, there was an opportunity to share that information and try to get that out there. But everybody was too busy trying to save their pocketbooks. And I mean, it's sad to say, and I'm glad that a majority of those people that were like that back in the early days, they're gone. They're gone. You know, the
agreed.
ones that are still around, I think, are the ones that were trying their hardest to try to save this. And that's when I opened my eyes up. I said, I got to do something. I got to figure something out. I got to try to do something here in Modesto. And I tried for a while. I was just trying to get and you're right, Philip. I tried in the vape shops, and the vape shops had no interest in it. They're like, hey, John, we're doing fine. We're selling, gallons of e-liquid every day. We're fine. We're not worried about it. And those were the shops that were closed today.
And that's what I
Yeah.
love about the shops that are still around here.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least my friends, they started their business. They heard about these Chinese glow sticks. That's what I called them way back when, and they were both they both smoked cigarettes. This is what started it. And let's just say I don't necessarily think you have to be a former smoker to be a purveyor of vapor products, but it sure as shit doesn't hurt, and it does indeed put you on a level. Let's just say it's a very you have to be able to empathize and truly be aware of what a person is going through. And if yes, I believe that you can have people that were never smokers involved in the running of a business, but the person who greets at the door
do you think
or
with
decides what to
cigarettes,
stock.
though? Do you think with cigarettes, people separate the two important things about cigarette: the addiction and cancer? And it's just like either one of the addiction part doesn't matter to the non-smoker more so than the cancer part of it. They don't. I think the non-smoker doesn't understand the addiction part. Is more worried. They should be more worried about the cancer
For
part.
decades, they've been so focused on getting away from people who smoke if they never smoked, and being told that they're toxic and their clothes are going to kill their
You
children.
can just cold turkey tomorrow.
The more I learned about the culture of tobacco control, and I was very much aware of how the freedom, the agency to smoke a cigarette here and there was dwindling day in, day out. And of course that was, no fun. But I also worked in an industry where smoking was still the norm.
Yeah.
And, thanks to the writing of, a lot of, extraordinary people, I've,
right.
gone, through the various, ways in which, I believe people should have the right to smoke a cigarette. And I believe people should have that right without, having to feel like they're lepers. I think that it's an atrocious thing. The things, no, I don't. I believe that smoking is a horrible death, and I would do anything to help anyone who wanted to quit. If somebody does not want to quit, I'm not going to tell them, they're a terrible person. I'm going to say, well, that is your decision.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Right.
But I'm also going to stand up for their right to smoke. This culture in which you're near someone who smokes, well, oh gosh, that's toxic. That's just it's nonsense, and it really does pain me. But baby steps, and yes, we're still here, and I think our age bracket can do a lot of good for advocacy in this space. And yes, I'm not giving up until I'm at least a little closer to Social Security.
Yeah. All right, guys, we ran a little long, but I wanted to get that question out there. Thank you, everybody out there in chat, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this little bit different type of show for us, but we wanted to share a little bit about ourselves tonight, and our likes and dislikes and stuff like that. So we have Michelle from East. How do you say that? I forget.
E-Cig Click, I think.
E-Cig Click. And I don't know her last name. I feel bad, but I don't think she uses it on her articles. It's just she's like Cher.
Okay. Prince
and Madonna.
didn't use his.
Huh? Yeah.
Prince didn't use his.
Yeah. It's just Michelle. So I don't know her last name, but yeah.
Did she run their Twitter account? If so, she's very good.
Yeah. I don't think she even uses it there. So she just, so it's just Michelle. So Yeah,
Works
she
for
will be
me.
joining us next week.
It's a lovely
Don't make
name.
me laugh. Don't make me laugh.
It hurts. Hey, thanks everybody for watching. As always,
Yeah.
we really appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And we'll see everybody next week. Peace out. Say goodbye, boys.
Look, I am.
Bye.